Hello and welcome. I haven't done a live stream for a while, so I thought I would do one today. Yeah, how exciting. And as usual, I have prepared well for this. The barbecutioner has arrived. Sponk is here joining us. Exploring the Past has joined us. Apple has joined us. Texas has joined us. The entire state of Texas, probably wearing a mask, has joined us. It's fantastic to see you all here. I'm streaming on Twitch, but I don't believe well, I know that I'm not streaming on Facebook because Facebook has changed things, so who knows what the world is doing. However, we're streaming on Twitch. I think the maximum number of people I've had watching me on Twitch is 2. So I don't know why I bother streaming on Twitch, but I'm streaming on Twitch. But we're here on YouTube as well, and that's the main thing. So I don't have too many things planned for this. I didn't have a video ready to go this weekend. I normally upload it, I would have uploaded it by now if I did have a video to go. I have been working on the Superbone all week, and I'm not too sure whether I want to show that off. I don't know if I want to show off the progress of the Superbone and save it for a video instead. I've done most of the recording for the latest iteration of that video. Yeah, but what I could do is I'll get a couple of the other instrument project-y sort of things that I have been working on recently, and we can talk a little bit through that. So BRB. So, this is the Super Piccolo trumpet that I made a little while ago, and I decided to do a little bit more work on it. So it doesn't have any of the valves in it. I took the valves out because I wanted to make the tuning slides a little bit more normal to try and see if I could actually get them to function as a normal instrument. Unfortunately, the second valve tuning slide there's just no way to make a functional second valve tuning slide, because you have to have a piece of tubing that goes, from one port to the other, and because of how small that would need to be for the instrument to be in tune, it's just not possible to bridge that gap and have a tuning slide small enough. And the third valve, I managed to get that completely stuck. I think I put the second valve tuning slide, or one of the other tuning slides, into the third valve, and now I can't get it out. So I haven't really progressed any more with this, so it just, it's still my ridiculous Piccolo trumpet, Super Piccolo trumpet. But it was an interesting thing to try and make, and completely pointless as is most of what I do. So that's, what do I have? Oh, I have a cornet under there. Just my life, you find random instruments anywhere. So this is my 4-valve trumpet. I did a little bit more work on this just to try and make it a little bit tidier and cleaner, and this is actually working pretty well as as a musical instrument. You can use this as a musical instrument. The third valve, you've got all the normal functionality of a trumpet. You've got your third valve that's adjustable. Your first valve is adjustable. It's a bit stiff. If I was to actually use this as a proper instrument, I would want to make that a little bit smoother. The fourth valve, I had a plan where I would make the entire fourth valve removable, and indeed the fourth valve tuning slide is removable, but have it so that you could put a quarter tone tuning slide in there, so that you could have this. You could have the choice of having your fourth valve as a quarter tone, and then have a microtonal trumpet, or have your fourth valve as a normal fourth valve. So I haven't really progressed any further to making that an eventuality. One thing I wanted to do is to get some actual proper straight bits of tubing, because these are just a couple of separate sections soldered all together, and it works. I've still got, you know, the tubing and the tuning slide, and it's in tune and all the rest of it, but I was wanting to try and clean that up a little bit more. But the valves all work and everything. The only real downside with this instrument is because I had to anneal the brass rod to make this brace, and then I only put, you know, a bend there and a bend there into it. It hasn't work hardened. And so if you're holding the instrument tightly and you know, putting a bit of pressure on the mouthpiece, it has a bit of wiggle room and it has a bit of wee wobble in it, and that's not particularly desirable. It's not the end of the world, but I guess as a proof of concept and as something that works all right. This is very heavy. The instrument is very heavy, quite uncomfortably so. Which is not surprising given that you've added an extra chunk of metal in the fourth valve and added an extra tuning slide and all the rest of it. So, yeah. An instrument that I reviewed, well, I did a video on this instrument. I involved this instrument in a video that I did recently, but I haven't done a video on it separately. This is a Russian-made instrument, made in St. Petersburg, I believe, and it's actually really nice. Now, if you scour eBay reasonably extensively, you will see a huge amount of Soviet-era brass instruments that are really cheap and generally rubbish. I have a few of them on my wall of many things behind me, and I've had a few of them over the years. This one, however, is actually really nice. This is a rotary valve corner. The valves need a little bit of work, but I find it interesting because it's got an adjustable spring on each of the valves. So each of the valves has your normal barrel here, which holds a wound up spring, but it's also got an adjustable element next to it. So you can rotate this. You may hear it clicking there. You can rotate that, which operates sort of around a capstan-y type of thing, and that will adjust the tension of the spring. It'll tighten the spring, which makes the valve a little bit harder to push down. It also makes the valve work a little bit faster. And then there's another little lever next to each of the valves where you can push that in, and it will push this little lever in. It will lift up an arm that prevents this gear from ratcheting around the wrong way. So that will release the pressure on the spring, and now of course the valve doesn't go back. And so you would rotate this, and you may be able to see that there's a little gear in there. So you rotate that, and that will tighten the spring up again, and then the spring works. Of course, if I was doing that in a video, I would, you know, do that properly and all the rest of it. But it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting. Now this when it came from Russia, it actually had I'll show you the stamp on it as well, if you can see that. It came with a bit of documentation with it, which is of course all in Cyrillic, which I can't read. But I work with a person that was born in Kazakhstan, and she can read Cyrillic. So it came with this, which is a document talking about the instrument. This, I can't remember, it was a while ago that she told me what each of these things mean, but the price for it roughly comes out to about $600 or $700 US equivalent now. So this was made in, when was it made? There's a thing that says when it was made. 1988, so it's even older than me. And when this was made, the amount that it sold for then, I think, was something like 198 rubles. That's written, 198 is written somewhere on it. If you were to work out what that is now, it's roughly $600 or $700 in today's money. But yeah, so it comes with this. It's been signed off by the factory person as being acceptable. It's still in reasonable condition, unlike most things that you imagine coming out of the Soviet Union. It doesn't smell of vodka and caviar. yeah. So it's an interesting instrument. I need to do some work on the valves still to make the valves work, just so. But I think because the rest of the instrument's actually in good nick, then this is potentially going to be a reasonably worthy cornet. Right. There's some questions. So talking about the valve mechanism, have I seen that on any other instruments? Yes, I have seen them. I have seen the concept of them on other instruments. I haven't actually interacted with any instruments in my hand that have that same mechanism, because I don't. It's generally a higher end sort of thing, and I don't tend to operate with higher end sort of instruments. Master Dirtblock asks, I wonder if wooden trumpets would be cheaper. There are a type of trumpet called a Holtz trumpet, Holtz, I believe. Is that the word? I think that's the word. And those are trumpets that are usually straight, i.e. they don't twist around on themselves. They have the lead pipe made out of wood and the bell section out of wood, but they may have a normal brass valve block. So there are wooden trumpets where the tubing and the bell flare is wood, and it has a bit of a resin tone to the sound. It sounds all right. I was thinking about making one actually, just getting a valve block out of a trumpet and just making a wooden lead pipe and a wooden bell flare and see how I get on. But I've never got round to doing that. CSX Rail fan asks, how's that bass trombone Thayer conversion going? Well, I've got all the bits, and a few months ago I met with Dr. Toot, who is a New Zealand based brass repair person that I interact with. He's a good friend of mine, and I met up with him a few months ago, and I said, well, let's do this together, because he's got a lot more skills and talent than I do, obviously. And so we took all the bits. He took all the bits when he was down delivering a sousaphone to one of his customers, and took all the bits back up to Auckland. I had booked a flight to go to Auckland and work with him and create a video and get the Thayer conversion project done, and then we had lockdown again. So we had a COVID outbreak in Auckland. I still can't get into Auckland unless it's an essential purpose, and the purpose of creating YouTube videos isn't classed as essential. So I can't actually get into Auckland at the moment to complete that project. So it's just been sitting there for the last few months, unfortunately. Right, where's some other questions? I'm Romanian, so for me it's 2 a.m. lol. The first time I didn't miss one of your lives. Oh, well, welcome, Cat Wave Animation. You're very welcome here. Hi Trent, says Lutello surname, and he has a Christopher Bill logo in his name. You traitor. Have I ever had a chance to play a tenor sax horn? Sax horns in their original version, no. I haven't played a sax horn in the original concept. I've played the modern derivatives of sax horns, which are tenor horns and baritones and things, but in actual period-made sax horns, no. The barbecutioner. What do you think of the Leafric devices? I think are they the mouthpiece? Are they mouthpiece weights? I'm not sure. I think I've seen something with that brand name. I'm going to go Google that. It's the Sound Bridge. So basically, to simplify what they offer, it's a piece of metal that you strap to your instrument, and it apparently makes your instrument better. I'm skeptical and dubious about that, because it sounds to me like a con to get people to part with their money. But that's not to say it doesn't work, because I don't have all knowledge and I haven't tried one. So it might actually work and it might sound nice. I just don't know. I haven't tried one. I'd be skeptical about getting a small piece of metal, strapping it to your instrument, and it suddenly making a noticeable difference. Yeah, I don't know. Could I make it happen to play a sub-contrabass tuba? Sub-contrabass tubas, there are people that have made in the past E-flat tubas, but an octave lower than common E-flat tubas. There's a few places in Europe, I think Czechoslovakia made one for a brief period of time. And I've seen some videos on YouTube of a person that has a triple E-flat tuba. Instead of E-E-flat, it's E-E-E-flat. Which implies it's an octave lower than a normal E-flat tuba, and indeed it is. There are also some novelty B-flat tubas that are an octave lower than a normal B-flat tuba. And if I had the resources, I would absolutely love to build something like that. Unfortunately, I don't have the resources or the skills or the tools to be able to do that. I do have the ability to get a normal tuba and just add extra tubing to it, but that would sort of create a sort of mutant instrument. But one of the things that I've learned over the years is that making your instrument bigger doesn't necessarily make it easier to play lower. So, for instance, my lowest note in terms of absolute pitch on an E-flat tuba is about the same, give or take one note, between a B-flat tuba. So, if I hit, say, a particular pitch, let's say 20 hertz, I've no idea what it actually is, but my lowest note on an E-flat tuba, which is a perfect fourth higher than a B-flat tuba, is the same pitch on both instruments. Having a bigger instrument doesn't mean I can play lower. It just changes the tone and timbre of the instrument. So if I was to have a tuba that was an octave lower than any other tuba that I've ever played before, I wouldn't be able to get an extra octave lower. I wouldn't be able to play an extra octave lower. It would just be an instrument that sounds and performs a little bit differently. So that's one of the misnomers about really big instruments. And it's the same with the Super Piccolo trumpet. It doesn't make it easier to play higher, or even just a normal piccolo trumpet versus a normal trumpet. You can't magically play higher because your instrument's half the size. Because everything is relying on your lip to form the vibrations, then you are still your lip still needs to do that work, and it doesn't matter whether your instrument's half the size or not. It's just as hard to play high on a trumpet versus a piccolo trumpet. So I've wanted to play a very big instrument and potentially modify a tuba to make it ridiculously low as a novelty purpose for a video, but I don't expect it to make any difference to my ability to play low notes, is the very short version of that. Jacob Coulson, have I tried a Shargel instrument yet? No, I haven't, but I'd love to. Shargel, if you're watching this, and I'm sure you absolutely are, because you wouldn't have anything better to do than watch useless YouTubers. Send me some instruments. Their Aurora bass trombone has to be the most gorgeous bass trombone I have ever seen. I'll see if I can pull up a takes me for about 3/4 of an hour to try and spell the word Shargel. It's not an English word for some reason. So the Shargel Aurora bass trombone. Let's see if I can share my screen. Yes, here we go. That is the Shargel Aurora bass trombone, and it is one of the most gorgeous bass trombones that I have ever seen. I just adore and love the cleanliness of the lines. I love the parallel lines of the trigger section. The trigger actually loops on either side of the main bell flare, so the bell section goes through the tubes of the trigger. It is, so you can see you can see that's just a gorgeous specimen, absolutely gorgeous. And I think it's got tuning and slide, as opposed to having a tuning slide on the main bell. So I think you adjust. There's a part of the slide that moves here, so that you don't have to use the main tuning slide up here. But I think the Shargle Aurora is the most gorgeous bass trombone that I have ever seen. I just think it's fantastic. I would absolutely love one, but I suspect the price is more than what I can afford, which at the moment is about $10.50. 6,500 euros according to the price list. So 6470 euros and NZ dollars is 10,500 New Zealand dollars. That's more than I earn in a day. Yeah, so that's never going to happen. But the Shargle Aurora is an absolutely gorgeous bass trombone, and there are not very many instruments that I think are actually more beautiful than the Shargle Aurora. I've never played one. It's very unlikely that I ever will play one because, unfortunately, well, I'm not a professional musician. I play in a few bands and things, but I don't have a justification for borrowing money to buy an instrument like that. My main bass trombone at the moment is my King 7B, and yeah, that does everything I need it to do, and it's a nice quality instrument. But yeah, if somebody sends me a Shargle Aurora bass trombone for Christmas, I'd pretty much do anything. I don't know. A person has returned after they had a bout of bad internet. I'll alert the media. It's important that we all know about that. Or somebody has a Wunderhorn, a Wunderhorn, I suspect it's pronounced. Is that the bass trumpet? The Wunderhorn. The one that the guy from Nosal Brass plays. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I'd also love to play the sort of rotary cornety thing, the Ray Winnie. It used to be the Raven, but it's been renamed Raweni. I don't know if they would pronounce that Ravini or something, but yeah, I'd love to play that. I like top action rotary valve instruments. Yeah, but just pretty much everything Shargle makes is gorgeous. Apart from the kiss bone, I'm not a huge fan of the kiss bone. The design of that doesn't really do it for me. But yeah, oh, the Wunderhorn V or 5, whatever that is. That's gorgeous. Oh, yeah, I'd love one day if I ever, I don't know, come to power. I'll go to the Shargle factory and have a play around, and yeah, I just love that. It's absolutely fantastic. What is my main B flat tuba if I have one? I don't have a main B flat tuba. I don't actually own a B flat tuba anymore. I used to have 2 or 3 at one point, but I got rid of them because they're not particularly practical, and they were both 3-valve compensating instruments. So if I wanted to record something, I'd have the limitation of not having that 4th valve, which would limit the amount of notes, my low range. So I wouldn't. I ended up getting rid of them. Yeah. The bands that I play in, there's a couple of videos on my YouTube channel where I have recordings of the band that I play in. There's a recording I did with the band accompaniment of, what was it, Adagio by, whose Adagio was it? I've forgotten the guy's name now. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, Albinoni. Well, Albinoni. So there's a recording of the Albinoni's attributed Adagio in G minor. I've just put the link in the chat down below. So that is there. We did that recording last year, almost exactly a year ago actually, and that was quite nice. I didn't play it particularly well, but that's a recording of one of the bands that I play with. I play lead UFO in that band, or just UFO in that band. Yeah, and I've one thing I have noticed recently though is that my playing has gone downhill immensely. I have not been doing as much practice as I should be doing, and as a consequence of that, I'm not as good. It's odd how that works. Yeah, do I have a Discord server? No. I believe some people tried to create a fan-orientated Discord server at one point, but I'm not all that popular, and having a Discord server seemed to be a bit pointless, so I didn't bother. I didn't sign into it. I don't know if it still exists, and I've never created one myself. I don't usually use Discord all that much. Do I own a sack butt? No, I don't. Do I play any games such as D&D or any video games? No, not really. I work full-time, and I have a 4.5-year-old daughter, and I have a YouTube channel. And between those, and you know, I play in 2 different bands. Between all of those things, I have very, very little spare time, so I don't actually do much. I don't do much playing. I don't play computer games very often. I don't watch TV very often either, because I just don't have time for that. I used to play a bunch of first-person shooters. Call of Duty was something I played back when it was Call of Duty 4 and Call of Duty World at War on PC. So I played that a lot. In fact, I used to host Call of Duty servers out of my garage in my home lab, because I was training to be a systems engineer. I was a systems engineer at that point, and I had a whole bunch of servers sitting around, so I used them to host Call of Duty servers back in the day. Then I got more into Battlefield, so I played that, but I haven't even opened a game for a very, very long time. Never played Counter-Strike, and I never really got into console gaming. I was only ever really PC gaming. Blank Straw. Am I going to teach my daughter a brass instrument? So I'd like to. I don't know how well it would work. So for those who don't know, my daughter was born 3 months premature, and she has mild cerebral palsy on her right side as a consequence of her prematurity. I mean, when she was born, she was about this size, and she weighed only a little bit more than this. So she weighed 1 kilogram or 2 pounds 6 when she was born. She's very small, spent quite a long time in hospital, but her right side doesn't work very well. And so her ability to play a brass instrument, it would have to be a left-handed brass instrument for one. And I know that Carol Brass make left-handed trumpets and cornets and things. And so when she gets a bit older, I'm thinking about getting one of those and seeing if she has an interest in brass instruments. At the moment, she loves singing. She loves bashing away at my keyboard, and it may stay with that. That may be where her interest lies. So it's sort of a longer term thing, because she has some physical movement challenges that may make some brass instruments not really work all that well for her. Fishy Boy. Hey Trent, I have a solo that I'm trying to learn. Is there any way you could model it for me? As in doing something like this, then absolutely I can model it for you. Send me it and I will present it for you. Have I ever played the jazzophone or a marching euphonium? I haven't played a jazzophone. I was thinking as one of my sponsored projects that I've been doing recently, I've been thinking about making a normophone, which is like a jazzophone, except it's only got one bell. And so I was thinking about doing that. I haven't really decided whether I will or won't yet, because I haven't experimented very much with bending tubing. There's a science to bending brass tubing and not having that tubing collapse in on itself. And that's something I haven't experimented with very much. So, if I was to make a jazzophone or a normophone, I would need to be able to bend tubes of metal, and I haven't experimented with that. As for the marching euphonium, I had an instrument that I think was a marching baritone that I used to make the superbone, and I haven't actually played a full marching euphonium. If that isn't but I imagine that they're very heavy, very front heavy. I haven't really played with one to answer that. Um, Going back to an earlier question, do I have any bands playing live in New Zealand yet? No, not really. So concerts and public events are limited at the moment to a maximum of 100 people. And so we're sort of, there's not many people that are out performing in public. But that may change in the future. The government here in New Zealand have released a sort of a traffic light roadmap thing that may see us playing in public again before Christmas. Not too sure. It's tied to vaccination rates, and vaccination rates in New Zealand. Vaccinations were off to a slow start in New Zealand because we didn't have any COVID community transmission for a very long time. So people didn't feel the urgency to get vaccinated, and unfortunately, then we got a strain of Delta in the community. And now people are tripping over themselves to get vaccinated. But as a consequence, we're behind the rest of the world. I think we're catching up now. But full vaccination rates in New Zealand are about 60-something%. So yeah, we're working on that. Unfortunately, we have a whole lot of anti-vaxxers and morons that are susceptible to misinformation and don't understand what they can't put a coherent thought together, let alone understand how vaccinations and all the rest work, and they think it's going to turn them into a 5G antenna and all sorts of absolutely ridiculous stuff. And unfortunately, those people are quite vocal, and so the people that are susceptible to misinformation are hesitant to get vaccinated, and that's the biggest thing that's going to prevent life here going back to normal. Right. Orange asks a very interesting question. Have I ever played a cavalry trombone? The answer to that is not yet, but I recently spent quite a bit of money on an instrument that's in the post at the moment, and it is a 6-valve cavalry trombone. I'll see if I can find a picture of it. And so the idea behind this, let me see if I can open this. This is a version of an online auction store that I'm not actually very familiar with, but I saw this and, right, purchases. Right, so let's share this screen. Here we go. This is the instrument that I have bought. It is a 6-valve cavalry trombone. So what makes a cavalry trombone? A cavalry trombone is a valve trombone, but instead of it sticking forward, the valve section sticks down in this manner. So on a normal cavalry trombone, you wouldn't have these extra 3 valves on the side. You just have the 3 valves at the top, and the tubing would follow this sort of path. The idea with this is that you could sit on horseback, i.e. be a member of the cavalry, and play a trombone without your slide sticking forward. It would just go down in front of you. It would be, convenient to hold, etc., etc. The bell would point forward. It's basically a valve trombone with the valve section that sticks down instead of out. With this particular instrument, it has 1 valve for every slide position. So obviously your first slide position closed is open, and so you would push the first valve to get second position, the third valve to get the third valve independently. So you use these valves one at a time. Third valve would be first valve is second position, second valve is third position, third valve is fourth position, etc., all the way down to sixth valve being 7th position. And so basically you've got 1 valve for every position of the slide. And so the idea with that is that you can adjust the tuning on a position by position basis. Now these are one of the very few instruments that are on my sort of antique instrument bucket list. This is one of the things that I've wanted for a very long time. There is a version of this kind of arrangement that has 6 valves and 7 different bells. that is another instrument that is on my, oh my gosh, I would love to have that bucket list. And there's only a couple more on that list. But I've bought this, and it's hopefully going to arrive in a few weeks' time. I don't know how long it's going to take to get sent from the US to New Zealand. The things that I've had sent from the US to New Zealand before have taken months with the current climate, but who knows? Who knows? I'm hoping that it arrives soon. Now, I know a lot of people don't really care for the fact that I have Skillshare sponsorships and things like that. But they have really helped me to have some budget to buy unusual instruments and buy the bits that I have been using to make the various instruments that I've been making on some of my things. So please watch ads, please do all that sort of stuff if you're not able to donate, because that really helps me actually put some money into the channel. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that 6-valve Cavalry Trombone arriving. I hope it arrives in good condition. I hope it does. Right. The barbecutioner, as my wall of many things has expanded, has my wife considered an intervention? I don't think so. And in fact, my overall instrument collection has decreased in the last 12 months. I had about 110 brass instruments, and I got rid of most of the ones that don't work. So I now have a much smaller collection, but the instruments in my collection now are either instruments that have some interest, some value, or they work. I got rid of most of the old junkers. So my wall of many things hasn't really changed that much. I'm thinking actually that I should put some swap around the instruments on my wall of many things. But the other thing is that the room that I'm sitting in right now is my music room. And my wife doesn't really care what I do in this room as long as it stays inside this room. You won't know, but I've actually got the majority of a large pipe organ set up in this room. And in fact, if I turn the camera around, you will see some of my organ pipes. So my wife doesn't really care what I do with this room, as long as I contain everything in this room and it doesn't go out into the rest of the house. Yes, a pipe organ. A pipe organ is, let me just try and adjust this camera back to where it was. Pipe organs are a real passion of mine. I know enough about pipe organs to sort of be dangerous, but the high school that I went to had a pipe organ, and ever since then I've wanted one. And so I have had a couple in my in various. I've had a couple. And this is just my current one. It's not working at the moment. Unfortunately, the organ has been in a number of earthquakes, and a lot of the pipes, the mouths of them have sort of been bent, or the toes of them rather have been bent off slightly. So it's sort of a bit of a junker of a pipe organ, but. Yeah, I'm planning on restoring it slowly as time permits. I have very little time. I have very little spare time. What is my main instrument? At the moment, my main instrument is UFO. I play in 2 bands. One of those bands is a competition grade band, and I play UFO in that. The other band I play in is a non-graded, doesn't compete sort of band, and I play bass trombone in that band. What is my favorite trumpet? Ooh. The trumpet that I would use as my go-to if I wanted to play something would be my Jean Paul TR-860. That's a very nice trumpet, and I like playing it. And yeah, that's probably certainly my go-to. But favorite's hard thing to hard thing to try and quantify. What tenor trombone do I use right now? I don't actually play a tenor trombone at the moment, but my go-to tenor trombone would be, I've got a Getson 3047 AFR. So that's a Getson allegedly professional grade trombone with a Thayer valve. I bought it cheap because it was in shocking condition. The slide isn't great on it. It's a very heavy slide actually. And it's got some really weird characteristics, but it's the nicest tenor trombone that I have with a trigger. If I wanted to play a tenor trombone without a trigger, then I've got a Best and Sovereign from the 70s, a Boozy and Hawkes round stamp Sovereign from the 1970s. That is a very nice straight tenor trombone. Yeah. Have I tried a Bach Strad Model 37? Maybe a very long time ago, but I haven't. The only Bach Strad that I've played in recent years is a Bach 50 B3, which is the one that's currently in bits awaiting conversion to a Thayer valve. Marching bands, we don't have marching bands in the US form in New Zealand. If we do marching, it's marching down a street in a military sort of formation as opposed to entertainment sort of marching. So no, I haven't done any American style DCI sort of stuff. My solo is Saison's Cavatine. I don't know how to send it to you. Email it to me, trenthamiltonnz@gmail.com. Orange asks, I heard there is a 2-bell euphonium. Have you ever seen one? Have I ever heard one before? I own one. Let me get it for you. This is my CG Con 5-valve double bell euphonium. The double bell euphonium was another instrument that was on my bucket list of things that I've always wanted for a very long time. Ever since I knew they existed, I wanted one. This one is in quite average condition cosmetically. It functions, and I'll give you a demonstration of it shortly, but yeah, it's cosmetically in quite an average condition. It has a small bore, sort of Euroshank style lead pipe, which is fine. We've got the 4 standard valves, and then the 5th valve, which diverts the airflow out of the euphonium bell and into the baritone size bell. Con made a whole bunch of versions of this instrument with upright valves, which you'd, instead of playing it like this, you play it like that with the valves up on top. They made 4 and 5 valve versions. Some of the versions had the main bell tilted forward, and some of them had both bells pointing up. There was about 10 different versions of them. Somebody has suggested that this bell isn't the original one that came with this instrument, and that's potentially true. I don't know because I have nothing else to compare it with. So this instrument, it's got a few leaks and things in it, but it's pretty much complete. So I've done a video of this before, but I can do a bit of a demonstration of it here. Let me get that mic over there. Yeah, my lip's not very well warmed up, and so I'm not playing very well. But there are air leaks and things through this instrument. It does need to be properly serviced, really, and it hasn't been touched, and it's 100 years old. So, yeah. But it's a nice instrument. It's been on my bucket list to acquire for many years. Yeah, so I like it. That's my double bell euphonium, and I've done a video on that in the past, so you can have a look at that if you have any interest. No, the ear doesn't get split between the bells. You choose which bell you want the ear to go out of by using the fifth valve. So the fifth valve open, the ear goes out the bell. The fifth valve closed, the ear goes out the small bell. So you only use one bell at a time. Somebody said something about my bugle. Ian asked, Trent, can I buy that 2-valve G bugle on my wall? Which one? I've got a couple of G bugles. I've got that's there. Yeah, it's hard to point. That one there is a G flugelhorn, and that one there is a G soprano. So I have two G flugely two G bugles in my collection. If you make me an offer I can't refuse, then I won't refuse, but otherwise they'll just stay on my wall of many things. Have I ever tried an actual sousaphone before? Yes, I have. I consider them to be ridiculous instruments, but I've never marched with them. I've just sort of held one and tried to play it. Yeah. Can I play the Bluebells of Scotland? Yes, I used to play the Bluebells of Scotland. Yeah. Anyway, look, we're getting to it's been an hour or so. So what? $10.51 for the soprano bugle. That's actually less than what I paid for it, believe it or not. So no, I'm not going to accept $10.51 for the soprano bugle. But thanks for your very generous offer anyway. That's quite exceptional of you. Mr. Trent, what are your thoughts on the Alpine horn? Would you ever get one? I want one. I would love an Alp horn because it's the perfect combination of brass instrument and highly impractical. That just makes it the perfect thing. But unfortunately, I don't have one, and they don't. For some reason, they're not really available in New Zealand, and they all seem to be custom made and very expensive. But I would love an Alp horn. If anyone's got a spare Alp horn that they want to send to me, yes, please feel free to do so. I wouldn't have any complaints. Right, so look, I'm going to end this video here. Thank you all for joining in and watching today. If you've got any other further questions, then please feel free to, I don't know, message me or something. Yeah, thank you very much for watching.